All right, good morning, everybody. We do have a bit of a impulse up here on the pre-market. A little bit of a bullish buy pressure off of Friday's value. You can see we started trading inside of Friday's value, but then we quickly started pushing away from it. And now we are heading towards that high of day, possibly looking to rotate and retrace Wednesday as well. And that would go back to around 950. So for the trade plan that we put out last night, holding above that value high of Friday, we're looking to retrace that high of day and that value high there. That high of day is almost hit. It's around 40. So keep an eye on that. And then holding below that value high, that starts that retrace. So possibly back down to 75. Maybe a tail extension down to 53. You could also target like the POC nodes as well. But that is the general idea. So same trade plan as last night. This would probably be like a small trend profile because we have 3 major nodes. This node is pretty small, but it is building up into the open. Okay, so basically the same story for NASDAQ, holding above that value high at 605. We're going to look for that high of day at around 800. 760, where was that level that I was pulling? I think I was pulling the overnight high, so that should actually be around, that's actually a fine level as well. You can do 760. But 803 is the actual high of day. And then 858 for that next level. Staying below 605, you're looking for 291. That's that retrace. And then 190 is a lower tail extension. The same trade plan as yesterday, just a little update on that one level. Just watch that value high of Friday. If that is lost, you could have a little bit of a overnight fade, which is basically just a value retrace of Friday. By the way, there is data coming out at 10 o'clock, so watch out for that. So far, no overnight fade. The opening buy pressure is following that overnight. A lot of bearish delta on NQ here, not seeing it too much on ES. Good morning, Tachi, JC, Ordinary, Leo, Future. Now, give me 1 second. I forgot to post the trade plan for you guys on YouTube here. Good morning, Banana, Adriana, AT, Marcel, Estevan. Good morning, Brian, Igor. Good morning, Ray. Still seeing that bearish delta on NASDAQ. You're just not getting that pullback on ES. ES doing a good job protecting this upper node, at least for now. If you lose that node at 40, there's not a lot below until you get down to 32. Good morning, Ray, Boat, DMG, Scott. Good morning, Ken. Good morning, Mike, Nitro, Angelo, Larry, Lubomir, Constantine. Good morning, Carrie, Titus, Lucio. Good morning, Pot, Jose, Peter, Mr. B. Bearish Delta is holding on NQ. If they can hold below those EMAs for a little bit longer, they might go down to the VWAP around 541. The trend is just so stable on ES, but we are losing this upper node. If they cannot hold that 40 node, they are not looking too good here. Titus, Trevor, Mark, Riso, Builds. Good morning, Stuart, Suzanne, XP, Garage, Ali. Appreciate you guys being here. Like I said, watch out for that data coming out around 10 a.m. It should be decently high impact. PMI data. Good morning, Nicholas. Good morning, Prophet. Yeah, Happy New Year, guys, if you guys are coming back from holiday. Good to see you guys back. Should be a fairly active week. We saw a lot of our volume come back on Thursday and Friday. Or sorry, not Thursday. Thursday was a holiday. It was Wednesday and Friday. So we should be seeing pretty decent volume this week. A lot of high impact data coming out. Most of the surge in volume was on Friday. Good morning, Adriana. So there's VWAP on NASDAQ. You're just not getting any movement on ES. ES is still rotating this upper node, protecting the 24 EMA. You're just not seeing that bearish delta that you are seeing on NQ. Very stable diagonal trend here. You are starting to lose this node. That node is definitely showing a lot of sell pressure. You're not rotating as easily to the upper portion of that node. Pretty decent day in the secondary markets. Gold up 2%, Bitcoin about 2%. Oil is up 2% as well. This upper node's starting to look a little bit bearish. They're not allowing that upper rotation as much. Good morning, Ryder. Crypto is very interesting right now. Yeah, crypto is in that stage where you had a pretty chunky pullback, but the people that have been trading crypto for 10 years or whatever, they know that it can go lower, right? So you have a lot of people waiting on like, okay, maybe it could go down to 50, 60% from the all-time high. But then you have kind of the newer traders or just the perma bulls, right? That are trying to buy every single dip. So down 40% from the all-time high is good enough for them. So it's in that weird spot where, yes, it is down a lot, but it definitely could go lower. So you're asking yourself, like, do I buy now or do I wait? It's at that spot where you probably could buy now. You would just probably have to hold on to it longer. But yeah, it's in a weird spot. If it had like one more leg down, if it dropped like 10, 15% more from that prior low, I don't think there'd be as many people wondering, like, is this low enough? You'd probably have a lot more people buying. Because at that point, it'd be down like, what, 50% from the all-time high, which is usually a pretty good level. Defense stocks soaring. Yeah, there's a lot of conflict going on. You have the Venezuela conflict. You have the Iran stuff going on as well. Iran is probably on the radar more, I would say, than Venezuela. Because the Venezuela stuff is kind of more like a stalemate right now. It's not like a war or anything. And I'm guessing the increase in oil, there were some OPEC statements over the weekend talking about keeping their supply down. You also had the Venezuela stuff where they're basically said they're going to keep blockading the oil. So all that supply coming out of Venezuela is going to be blockaded and prevented for the most part. I don't think they said like 100% of the oil, but the sanctioned ships So that's probably why that's going up. I'm not sure why metals are going up. Metals might be just following the overall risk of the market, the conflicts and whatnot. I didn't see any direct metals headlines. $11 billion in arms sales to Taiwan as well. Yeah, just global conflict basically. Defense stocks typically do well. They're almost like blue chips. Good morning, Scott. Okay, they're trying to protect this upper node again. Right now, you're just rotating, right? You go up, slaps back down, you go back up. It is slightly bullish, obviously, because of the trend, because of the 24 EMA. Also bouncing off VWAP with NASDAQ. I don't know if that's globally DMG. I know they have the largest gold reserves in like South America. I think that includes Central America as well. I don't know if that's globally. I'd have to double check on that. But their gold reserves are not that high. It's honestly chump change when it comes to the global, I guess you would just call it like the monetary system, like everything, not just metals, right? Just money. I was actually just looking at those numbers yesterday. Let me see if I can pull them up. Uh, 161, is that million or billion? It's metric tons, 161 metric tons. The closest to them is Brazil. This is in Latin America. They have 130. Mexico 120, and then it falls off a cliff after that. That's outdated information though. That the most they could pull up was from 2022. So it's probably a little bit higher now. Yeah, it's 0.07% of the global supply, which is basically nothing. I think it only adds up to like 22 billion, somewhere around there. And it's slightly outdated, so I'd say 25, maybe 30 billion. If they have more. Bouncing off that upper node. This is that bullish nature from that trend, from that 24 EMA, from that VWAP on NASDAQ. Have about 15 minutes left until that data comes out. Pretty impactful data. Oh, I was muted that whole time. Fantastic. What I was saying was, this is one of those trapping patterns with the Momo and OTS. You have that kind of slow movement back down to that trail, typically around the 24 EMA or the other slower moving averages. So you have that slow move down. It hits that buy the dip signal on the trail, which also has that cupping pattern on the Momo, where you start to lose that short-term momentum, but it comes back up. The cupping pattern, or sorry, the traps are almost always that cupping pattern. If it's a violent trap, kind of like a sweep, it's more like a V-shaped pattern. So that trap kind of pushed you back up into that prior high, which is now also being trapped. You have a sweep on that high. I was also saying there's a bunch of pivots we're running into on the 30-minute. Starting to lose that upper node yet again. Good morning, trader. This trap downward, the cupping one, was the bears getting trapped because you pushed back into the prior high. This trap here is a sweeping trap, just a very standard sweep. So the buyers are being trapped. So you have a little bit of a support node at 32, which is right around VWAP. Keep an eye on VWAP here at 28. It's a pretty nasty sweep. You have a 1-minute sweep of this prior high here. But you also have a 30-minute sweep, which is losing this very strong node around 40. A lot of large orders too. You can see these boxes here. Those boxes, I'm pretty sure I have them set to 300. Yeah, it is 300. So all of those are positive 300 or more delta. So a lot of bullish delta up here getting pushed back down. Looks like they're trying to protect this upper node again, which is the POC. Be careful here with the data coming out. Comes out at 10 o'clock. It's possibly putting in a rollover top here, a lower high. Rollover tops are always that lower high after a sweep, right? So you have the sweep here, sweeping this prior high, possibly putting in a lower high. You want to vanquish? Be careful if you guys are in trades or you're taking new trades. That data comes out at 10 o'clock. It is PMI data, so it should be decently impactful. Should get a little surge. In volume, at least. Still just kind of rotating around that POC node. Like we talked about in the Becoming an Apex Trader series, you basically think about every node the same way you would treat like a D-shaped profile, right? Is it rotating it? Is it failing to rotate? Is it imbalanced? So like right now, if you look at this node, and we're like, okay, this is kind of like where the value low is. That's kind of like where the value high is. Just in that general area. It doesn't have to be perfect. Are they respecting those rotations? Or is one side clearly winning? Like right now, you could argue the sellers are winning because if you look at the 1 minute chart, they're failing to rotate. They keep hitting that node, that POC node, and failing off it. They're not allowing it to go back to like 42, 44. And that's kind of how you treat every single node, right? But especially when the nodes are like this, where they're very defined. Good morning, Olive. Good to see a lot of you guys back. I appreciate you guys coming back after the holidays. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your time off. I know that last week of the year is just probably like the worst, one of the worst trading weeks of the year, usually. Not in terms of like the market does bad. It's just hard to trade. There's just so much going on outside of trading. And the market is very low volume typically. Yeah, I just realized, Martin, that I completely forgot to do it again. We could probably do it tomorrow. We could just do Momo Tuesday instead of Momo Monday. I was pulling it up earlier. There's not a whole lot to show right now. The only thing that I showed, or the only thing there really is to talk about, is that trap. So we talked about that trap earlier where you had that cupping pattern into the trail, which also had that Momo trap. So that's what we call a combo signal, where the OTS and the Momo are showing you the same signal. So the bears were being trapped here, and it gave you a new high. Now, obviously, the new high got trapped as well, but it still did its job. It gave you a new high. Nothing really else to talk about here. There was a combo signal on Friday. We had that purple shading with that blue pivot. So blue pivot, purple shading, high probability of a bottom, and that was the bottom. What else is there? That's about it. Not a whole lot else going on right now. Here is that data coming out, so be careful. There's the impact. You can already see it. A lot of delta coming in at 40. Lower than expected, 47.9 over 48.3. Manufacturing, 58.5 over 59. That bottom's the same on Bitcoin, but on the weekly. You mean like the combo? Or you mean like the timing? Oh yeah, the pivot. Yeah, so you have the pivot and the blue shading. Or sorry, the purple shading. I don't like where this pivot is. This pivot, when you see something like this, where you have kind of a rollover top, and then it immediately puts in a blue pivot, this can turn into a stair-stepping pivot very easily. So if this doesn't bounce, like let's say it fails the trail here, this can very easily be a stair step, meaning it puts in a pivot, it bounces a little bit, fails, puts in a pivot, bounces a little bit, fails, and it just does that pattern over and over. So yes, locally, definitely a good bottom, but it could turn into a stair step. So just be careful on that. Very similar to what you're seeing right here on the 1 minute on NASDAQ. You had a top and then an immediate blue pivot. If you put in a blue pivot right after a top, it's usually a stair step. Kind of like what we're doing here on the orange pivots. These orange pivots are stair stepping, where you put in a pivot, kind of pulls back a little bit, breaks, pivot, and then so on and so forth. One minute trail still holding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sweeps of that trail. Want aroma? Still getting a lot of block trades here. Another block trade at 45. These bullish blocks are being protected. They're not allowing any sell pressure below that level, which is 40, which is the POC. Still not seeing any attempt to overnight fade. It's not really going against us overnight here. So overnight started just barely inside of value, pushed out of it, and now we're surging out of it. There's our first target, that high of day of Friday, retracing this nasty sell-off. And then our next target is basically hit, which is the value high of Wednesday and the high of day. Yeah, I was going to say we're right around that 50% to 618, and you're right on that 618 if you take a Fibonacci from this entire sell-off. So this is about where the sellers need to start getting a lot stronger, or you're just going to start completely retracing back into 94. So you have a couple of value levels here. You got a value level at 51, one around like 55, 58. So this whole little chunk right here, that's probably the last line that the sellers need to hold. If you hold above that, you're probably going the whole way. Yep, same thing on NASDAQ, right on that 618. So same thing here, you got a little bit of value. So if they can't find that sell pressure very soon, I'd say around like 700, 710, you're probably going to go the whole way. I'm not saying today, but just overall. Looks like you're still just figuring out what to do with that data. The initial move was very obvious to the buy side. These candles are all very top heavy. The lower portion of the candle, extremely weak, which shows that the initiative sellers, the sellers that need to push that into lower value, they're just not really there today. Keep an eye on all this delta that came in with that headline, with that data. If they don't protect that at 40, there could be a lot of trapped buyers up here. That trend is extremely stable right now. You have almost a direct diagonal here. So tomorrow is basically the only day that we don't have pretty serious data On Wednesday, we have ADP, PMI, JOLTS data. They're all very impactful. Thursday, not a whole lot of impactful data, but there's a lot of smaller data points coming out. And then Friday, we have older housing data that did not come out because of the shutdown. Then we have average hourly earnings, non-farm unemployment, consumer sentiment. We got a lot of stuff going on Friday. Very active. So Tuesday is like the only day you could probably ignore the calendar, but every other day you need to keep an eye on it. Anything going on we need to talk about? Let me see. Not really. It's all pretty standard. There's a 1-minute pivot being retested on NASDAQ. That's about it. Not really seeing any other patterns here. What's our daily looking like? So we didn't get a buy signal on that trail. We just barely missed it. Missed it by a few points. But still holding the trail as support there. Not getting any decision on the Momo yet because of all the sloppy sideways price action. Weekly still stable buy side, obviously. Monthly still very stable. There are a lot of resting 30-minute lows that are not really being tested here. So if they can't hold above this high here, they could be going for these 30-minute lows. It's not a good look that we're breaking out of this value high of Friday, but we're not seeing that push. We're not pushing away from it. It's like hanging out on that level. You are seeing it on ES, so this is what you want to see. You see how ES was kind of hanging out on that value high and then it rapidly pushed away? That's what you want to see on NASDAQ. You're not really seeing it. So that's a little bit worrying. Delta's still pretty weak on the buy side on NQ. Looks like we're getting into like a vertical distribution here where it is going higher, but it's kind of chopping higher. Come on, Roman. You're not really losing a single 5-minute low. Damn near since like 8:30. Because even the 5-minute lows that were lost, they're typically wicked. Could have been waiting on NASDAQ. NASDAQ finally back to that prior high. Had to slowly climb back from VWAP. I don't think we've actually lost a 5-minute low now that I'm looking at it. In like 2 hours. Because this whole section right here, they're just wicks. It's a very strong trend here. I believe this is finishing our trade plan, yeah, at 50, so I do have to extend these targets here. Extended targets are pretty easy. Just a couple of value levels, probably around 58 and 75. Don't believe NASDAQ has even got there yet. You're still just sitting on that value high. So first target is that high of day. Still seeing that same pattern with the vertical distribution where when you break a 30-minute high or you break the high of day, it's not like an explosive break. It kind of comes back down and chops around a little bit, which is why you do not want to be a breakout trader on days like this, even though the trend is very obviously bullish. The breakout traders are still losing pretty much every single time. They lost right here very aggressively. They lost right here. And they just had a little pullback on this one as well, which is about 5 points. So if you had a really tight stop on a breakout trade, you already lost. The breakouts are not very safe right now. Now, liquidity is pretty good. You just have both sides kind of fighting back and forth. The liquidity's not that bad. You're getting little blocks here and there of like level 2 orders, but mostly it's fine. And our volume's back to being very good. Nearly 200k volume on that opening candle. This one's going to break 100k as well. Much better than what we were seeing like a week and a half ago or early last week. Yeah, NASDAQ hasn't done anything today, so the targets haven't changed. Just keep watching these 5-minute lows. We literally have not lost a 5-minute low since this entire move started. Every break turned into a sweep. Okay, finally pushing away from that chop here. They picked a bad time to push. They're going to create single prints going down to 45, or sorry, 49. More block trades coming in. All right, very strong 30-minute close, but it did leave single prints down to 49. We'll see if they care. You can see the weakness on the breakout buy yet again. They push above that 30-minute high, comes right back down. These are days that really confuse the hell out of traders. Because they're like, how the hell am I losing money when I'm buying a breakout on a trend that looks like this? It's literally just diagonal from the bottom left of the chart to the top right of the chart. But I'm somehow losing money, right? And it's because they're just FOMO buying every breakout. Possibly looking for those single prints. Keep an eye on 49. Single prints are filled in. That was that was the first time you lost a 5-minute low the entire trend, but that was just filling in single prints. So if they protect that 5-minute low, then that's perfectly okay. This candle right here. You lost this doji and then filled in the single prints, but if they protect that, it's okay. Could be putting in a lower high, which is the worst case here. Still protecting that 5-minute low and basically where the single prints are, or where they were. They're filled in now. Yeah, the trade recap videos are coming. We're going to start doing the recaps like we were doing the videos, I think it was a few months back. We're going to start pumping out some shorts again, and we're going to start doing the recap videos again. I'd say they're going to start probably before the end of the month. Basically the exact same way that we used to do them early and kind of like mid last year. Value high is around 47. It's kind of it's almost exactly where the single print level is. So could be pulling back into it again. This is that lower high that I was talking about. Not a good sign for the buyers so far. Still protecting those 5-minute lows. The 5-minute lows are very, very strong today. This is that similar thing to what we talked about earlier with that node rotation, right? You're basically treating this node as like a D-shaped profile, and it's just rotating back and forth, until one side is clearly winning. Yeah, price action still feels like a kind of the holiday chop, but the volume is definitely better. Still seeing that same 5-minute low, that big candle that we had that filled in the single prints, the one at 1035. That one 5-minute low is protecting all of these candles here. If you lose that 5-minute low, that's when you start looking for like VWAP retracements. You start looking for that POC possibly acting like a magnet, which is basically VWAP. It's kind of right in the middle. You're getting a slight bearish bias on this rotation here, because if you think about this, like let's say that's the value low, let's say that's the value high, you're not seeing a lot of rotation, you're not seeing a lot of value on that value high. You see how bottom heavy this is? Very bottom heavy volume on this candle here. So if you don't see that buy pressure around that 54 pretty soon, you're going to start pushing down here. They finally allowed it to rotate to the upper portion of this node. Let's see if they can actually stay above that. You'd have to build up above like 54 here. It's kind of like a cup and handle on NASDAQ. You have a large cupping pattern back into that high. A little bit of sellers on that prior high of day, pushing you down a little bit. Needs to respect those EMAs if you do want to continue to trend here. Notice how you're still just rotating back and forth here. I didn't do anything fancy, Michael. I just zoom in. I don't know how I did it the way that it is. There's no like special setting, I don't believe. I just have it zoomed in. This is just the standard one, the market profile one. Yeah, like I said, I don't think I have any fancy settings. I just have it zoomed in. I pretty much haven't changed any of the settings except for like the colors and the tick size. Are you talking about 26 changes? Like, are there new rules going in place? I didn't see any headlines or anything on that. Starting to hold above that 54 where that node is. This is that cup and handle I was talking about on NASDAQ, putting in a perfect handle here. Yeah, so that stuff that you're talking about, that's all old news, right? That all started happening like what, a year or two ago with a lot of the prop firms. I think it's reasonable. I think wanting people to be pushed into like actual accounts is kind of like a regulation thing. It's a lot safer. Yeah, that would be like the only downside. The only downside would be you can't have like 10 accounts all taking like a 2K withdrawal per account. And if you lose one account, it's not a big deal. You've got 9 more, right? But usually at the point that they are asking you to become a live trader, like a live account, you're so consistent at that point that it's not going to be a big deal. I wouldn't worry about like coming up with these scenarios in your head. The same thing with people that constantly come up with the scenarios of the failed payouts, right, or the rejected payouts. It happens very, very rarely. Like if I had to poll my entire community and see how many people were in live accounts, if I had to guess, it'd probably be like less than 5%, if that. Same thing with like the rejected payouts. If I polled the community and saw how many people were consistently getting rejected, it would probably be about that same percentage, maybe even less. And the payout thing is getting ready to change. I don't know if they've already started implementing it, but they're trying to be more upfront about like, hey, you broke this rule. Let's talk about Apex. I don't know about the other platforms, but talking about Apex, they're trying to be more upfront about like, hey, you broke this rule on this day. Like they tell you immediately instead of waiting for you to try to take a payout. They're like, okay, no, you can't because you broke all these rules. So they're trying to be more what would the word be? Like it's more live, it's more up to date, like right when it happens. But like I said, I don't know how much they're implementing that already. How many people will get payouts percentage wise? I'm not sure. I don't know that number. It'd probably be the same thing, probably another low number. Yeah, proactive is what I was looking for. Thank you, Sean. Being much more proactive than reactive. I get it. Traders, they just have that in their nature, they want to predict, right? They want to come up with scenarios and predict all these different things and be prepared for all these different things that can happen. But a lot of times they're just being pushed by a negative narrative online, right? They think that it's very common, whether it's the payout thing or the live account thing or whatever it is, breaking rules, etc. It seems like it's a lot more common than it is because that's just how the internet works, right? The loud minority. Oh, does Top Step reveal those numbers? I know a lot of the companies reveal the numbers on how many people get to a paid account, but they don't reveal the exact numbers on like how many people get payouts, I don't believe. I think the paid account number is close to like 20% or somewhere around there, is like the industry average. Yeah, long story short is just trade. Just do what you're doing. Just have your trade plan, have your ideas, your strategies, whatever. Be consistent and you'll be fine. Like people you don't have to worry about getting rejected on all your payouts and all that other stuff. It's very rare. Just be consistent. Don't be throwing random size around. Don't be trading crazy on news days or FOMC, stuff like that. Vast majority of people, if you're just sticking to a standard system, you'll be fine. And I don't mean that you're all going to be profitable. I just mean that if you are profitable, if you are consistent, you'll be okay. You're not going to be running into their rules constantly. And that goes for pretty much every prop firm. I'm not just talking about Apex. That's just the nature of prop firms. Yeah, exactly. And then you take into account like how many traders are using prop firms to just gamble. They're not exactly trading. They're just throwing trades out there and just hoping they pass. The numbers are much better than you would expect if you cut it all down. If you cut it down to people that are like in my live stream or in my community, the traders that are serious about this, right? They're not just blindly gambling. They're doing much better than you would expect. Like I said, I sound like a broken record. I say the same thing over and over and over again all the time about this rant that we're on about prop firms and whatnot. But I know that it works, right? I've seen the success from the community, the people that I'm tutoring, the people that I'm not even tutoring that are just hanging out in the Discord that send me their payouts every now and then. They just send me emails or messages on Discord and let me know how they're doing. It's working, right? If you just keep this mindset of being consistent and not being a gambler, and you're building a strategy that is kind of like evergreen, right? A strategy that is going to work for a long period of time, you'll be all right. Just don't go into trading thinking it's easy. It's not easy. Many people will fail. Many people will consistently fail. But the biggest thing with trading that makes it difficult is the gambling aspect, right? Like, people just don't treat it like it's trading. They treat it like it's gambling. Another thing is people... It's a very individual battle, right? People are all different. Some people can make a trade plan. They can make like rules for themselves, little sticky notes on their monitor, whatever it may be. Little discipline rules like, hey, don't do this. If you hit this much of a loss today, stop trading. a lot of people, they can make those rules for themselves and they can follow those rules, right? And then you have a lot of people that can't do that. They make all these arbitrary rules and they just can't follow them. They don't have that discipline to listen to themselves. It takes a very specific, I should say, kind of person to do this on a daily basis and be consistent. And just some people are just they're not cut out for that. And it's not an intelligence thing, right? It's not like you have to be a genius. You have to have 140 IQ to be a trader. It's not exactly intelligence. Intelligence definitely helps. But it comes down to discipline, emotional control, all kinds of stuff, right? Some people just can't do it. And that's true for a lot of people, actually, not just some. Yeah, greed, like thinking you can make $1,000 a day. That goes into like gambling as well. Putting in a lower high on this 30-minute, possibly back into rotation here. I mean the small rotation, just to this candle, not full rotation. But yeah, exactly. It's a hard truth. It doesn't sound like it's a morally nice thing to say. But if you guys look at my strategies, a lot of my strategies are designed around trading where a lot of traders lose, right? Like these sweeping patterns, the liquidity grabs, the traps, all that stuff, right? These trades are designed where most traders are making those very common mistakes. And you're trying to be on the right side of that. It's just human nature, right? You're trading against human nature. But that's the exact reason why I run my channel the way that I do. I try to focus on helping the 90% or the 99%, the people that struggle, the people that they're not consistent, they're not finding that like right groove to be consistent in their trading. I try to help them not lose as much money, right? I don't focus on the 1% and try to help them make a little bit more money. They seem like they're doing all right, right? They don't really need that much help from me. They're already figuring it out. Bounced off that value high. Beautiful reaction there. He tried to come back to this like value high of this overlap, this little node here. Bounced off it immediately. So showing that bullish imbalance here. And this is exactly what I was just talking about earlier this stream, about how you treat these nodes as like a D-shaped profile, as a balance, right? So you look for those rotations over and over until you have that failed rotation. And then what happens when you break out of that rotation and you start looking for a higher value or a lower value? Same thing here, right? We're doing it on the daily, on the full session here, or I guess the cash session. And we're doing it on this smaller example here on the 30-minute. They broke the value high of the cash session, now they're extending it. They broke the value high of this little node, retested it, now they're extending it, right? He said, I have a fixing personality, so if I take a loss, I want to fix it and make it better. Yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one in trading, is like, it kind of goes into the competitiveness, right? That's kind of why I got into trading in the beginning. I was a competitive person. I like the competitive nature of the market. I like doing something that is hard. Like you need to work on it. You need to improve it. Doing something that's challenging and just figuring it out, right? And that's kind of what the market is. You have that competitiveness where you're like, okay, this is really hard, but I think I can do it. What helps with the the losing side of trading is like who just said it? Titus was talking about treating it like odds, right? So trading it's hard, right? We know we're going to lose like 50, 60% of the time, most of the time. Most people are going to be around that 40 to 50% win rate. But I'm not going to get into the whole win rate stuff. The numbers don't really matter. But my point is, you're going to lose. But understanding that you're losing not because the trade was like bad, you made a really bad decision, it just didn't work. If I take that trade 100 times, I'm going to be net positive. So when you understand that, you take away that burden. You take that chip off your shoulder, right? Where you're not blaming yourself constantly. Now, there is a very fine line there. Lower high, giving us sell pressure here on NASDAQ, by the way. Keep it on that 54, possibly losing that on ES would be pretty weak. But yeah, there's a fine line there where you don't want to constantly blame the market for like, oh, it wasn't my fault. It was just because the market was bad. You don't want to constantly blame the market for everything. But you don't want to constantly blame yourself for everything, right? That's why journaling is so important. You need to figure out, are you losing that trade because you made a bunch of mistakes? Or is it's just the market? You're just not going to win every trade, right? And that's why you need to be as mechanical as possible. Like, I always use the example of the rollover top because it's the most mechanical, probably, trade that I have that I can explain on stream. Where it's the same thing over and over and over again. You go for a high, you sweep the high, it goes for the high again, it puts in a lower high. Okay, we know that we're supposed to be trading around that lower high if we did not get in the sweep before that. So I know on paper, if I'm looking at that trade and I'm trading very far away from that lower high, that is not the market losing that trade. That's me being an idiot, right? That's me making a mistake. So you need to understand the most mechanical setup, or like how do I say this? You need to understand what is like the optimal pattern for your trade. Like, this is the absolute peak. If it looks like this, it's probably going to win like 7 out of 10 times or whatever, right? And you need to be as close to that as possible every time. So if you lose it, you have that journal, you have those stats that tell you that's not a big deal. You lost it. Who cares? You're going to be net positive in the long run on that trade. So it takes that burden off yourself. You're not blaming yourself constantly. Like I said, it's a very fine line because you don't want to constantly blame the market, but you don't want to constantly blame yourself. You got to find that sweet spot. And the best way to do that is journaling, right? Keeping a lot of screenshots of your trades and understanding what a optimal pattern is, what is a slightly bad variation. You guys hear me talk about it on stream almost every day when I talk about VWAP trades all the time. And I'm like, hey guys, this is a good VWAP bear flag. Hey guys, this is a bad variation. That's what I'm talking about. So I know if I take the bad variation and it loses, well, I took a bad variation. Statistically, that has a lower win rate. So I can be mad at myself for taking the bad variation, but at the end of the day, it's still a net positive position. It's just a little bit lower of a net positive. That's why poker players do very well as traders. It's probably the #1 overlap. Poker players do very, very well because they understand odds. They understand that if they lost a hand, if they went in with a pair of aces and they lost, that's not exactly their fault. It's just the market, right? Everybody's going to play pocket aces, right? It's just a good setup. But not everybody's going to win pocket aces. The market's going to do what the market does. And in the poker game, the market is the deck, right? But that's why poker players are such good traders. They completely they understand it probably on a better level than traders themselves. To a certain degree, right? Like if you take an average trader and then an average poker player that's also a trader, they probably understand it more. It's just understanding the odds, the pot odds, whatever, right? Understanding the variance. Same with blackjack. Exactly, yeah. Blackjack's a little bit harder because of the amount of decks, right? So you'd have to know the exact amount of decks to understand the odds exactly. But if you were doing like a single deck blackjack, which basically nobody does now, it would be very similar to that, where you basically understand the exact odds going into it. But yeah, long story short, if you journal properly, if you trade the same setups over and over and over again, and you start to understand, like, okay, this setup should be accurate about 40% of the time or whatever. This is a bad variation of that setup. This is a good variation. You'll stop blaming yourself as much. You'll know, like, okay, I should have been getting in here on VWAP, but I got in 5 points below VWAP. I know based on my prior trading, if I get in 5 points below VWAP, that's typically not a good thing. Stuff like that, right? But most traders are just like, this looks good, I press button. Or they might not even go that far. They might be like, this, I feel good, like this feels good, I press button. They think they have the intuition down, right? If trading is done properly, it should be extremely boring. It should be extremely boring and extremely robotic. But alright guys, we streamed a bit over time today. I am going to call it there. I will be streaming in Discord for the rest of the day. If you guys are not in Discord, I will see you guys tomorrow, same time as always. I believe, let me double check. I think the 90% off is coming to an end tomorrow. It might be next week. Let me double check here. For Apex. It is tomorrow. So 90% off coming to an end tomorrow. If you guys want to support the channel, you can use code BREW, B-R-E-W. I am bringing back the raffles. So if you guys do use the code, just be sure to hang on to all those receipts. I'm going to get those receipts from you guys on the last week of January, and we're going to do the raffle at the end of the month. If you guys are new here, you don't know what I'm talking about. Every month we do a raffle where I give away cash prizes and Discord access for people that use the Apex code. So just hold on to those receipts. You get 1 ticket per 50K. So if it's 100K, you get 2 tickets, so on and so forth. Don't send them my way yet. I'm going to tell you guys when to send them on the last week of January. But all right, guys, that's all I got. Hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe if you guys haven't already. Be sure to check out that Becoming an Apex Trader series. If you guys are ever confused about anything that I talk about on stream, that series basically covers everything. It covers like 90, 95% of the stuff that I talk about on stream. But all right, guys, I'll see you in Discord. If you're not there, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace, everybody.